Welcome back to the channel. As you can tell by this thumbnail, things are getting a little ridiculous for some of the vintage Star Wars action figure auctions, especially at the big auction houses where a lot of the whales like to play. A lot of the people also that don't understand the action figure market very well or what to look for in an item. And they see the population report, they see how it's marketed sometimes, and they overbid. And most likely, to be honest with you, most likely that the people that are buying on Heritage, especially, they don't care about the cost. They don't have any money concerns, okay? And they don't care whether they bid 5,000 or 500 or 50,000, okay? So, but this, to me, these are the kind of signs that you look for where you feel like maybe the market is getting a little too hot at the upper end, at the very upper end. Now, all that being said, some of the items that we're going to cover, there were pretty good deals in this last Heritage auction that ended on the 17th of August. But that is not a typo on that thumbnail. A Klaatu sold for $13,000, the exact same price as an AFA 80 12-inch Boba Fett that also had issues and was a drastic overpay. So let's dig in. But, again, I don't know what I'm really taking away from this auction other than there's a lot of stupid money out there right now. A lot of stupid money that's being spent. We've seen it in certain auctions over at Hakes where people have overpaid. And we see some stuff where I'm like, wow, that went really cheap. So, again, it's no offense to anybody that buys this stuff. You can do what you want with your money. I'm just giving you my honest opinion on some of these, which you can take or leave. All right. My opinion is worth this much to most people, including my wife. Zero. So this was a 12-back C AFA 85 Luke Farm Boy. Punched example. You can see here. Here's the label. Archival case 859090. Okay. So that's a very high grade example. 6562. I don't think that that's out of the realm of what we've seen over at Hakes. So to me, that was a very normal final sales price, given the grade. Given the grade again. It's not a number, of course, that I would pay, but, people that are putting together a 12-back run that want only AFA 85s, they're going to be willing to pay a significant premium versus what a 12-back C Luke Farm Boy AFA 80 would sell for, which was probably, what, $2,500, somewhere in there, max. So, not a big surprise there. 12A Vader AFA 80 sold for $2,500, very much in line with fair market value, right? And this kind of goes back to what we always talk about, that at least on the big auction house websites, especially Heritage, the people buying, a lot of the time, they're only looking at AFA 85s or 90s. They're not even going to consider bidding on an AFA 80 or below. And, look, I get the idea of investment grade items versus collector grade items. I personally still think a 12A Darth Vader AFA 80 is investment grade, in my opinion. Now, again, there's going to be lots of people that disagree with that, okay? But in terms of a liquid asset, this thing would sell like super quick. If I was listing this on Rogue 5 Toys at this price, it would be gone. It would sell immediately. So I think that is fine. That's a fine price to pay. 12B AFA 75 plus 2,200-ish. Now this one had the frosting on the head. And so that's where I feel like, in my opinion, would I pay 2,200 for this? No, I would not. This one would have a lot more trouble reselling. To me, it's a no-brainer to get the 12A AFA 80 for $2,500 versus this 12B 75 plus for $2,187. I don't get it. I don't get what they were doing there. I don't know why this one sold for that price. This should have sold probably in the ball, in my opinion. Again, take it for what you will. This at most to me is worth like $1,000 to $1,200 given the frosting on that. It hurts so much when the aesthetic qualities of it are just ruined by the frosting on that. And why it sold for that price, I have absolutely no idea. No idea. Here's another one where this is dumb money, in my opinion. Somebody just had no idea what they were bidding on. All they saw was the title of the auction, 12-inch series Boba Fett, second highest grade. This is not an AFA 80 anymore. Okay, I don't know what is going on with the window on this. You know, I'm assuming that this scuffing that you see here is on the window and not the figure. Could it be on the figure? I guess. I don't know without it having it in hand, right? But I think what happened, if I had to guess, what happened is that the zip tie holding this figure inside to the backer card probably fell off or disintegrated or whatever, and the figure went up against the window and caused the rubbing. Now, it could be on the, you know, whether it's on the figure or on the window, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, this is not an AFA 80 item anymore. It's just not, okay? They've got a box 75, window 80, figure 80. That is no longer a window 80 based on that. That's at most a 70 or 75. And this would no longer get an 80. If you were to crack this open and send it back to AFA, or if you just send it back to AFA as is, there's no way it would still get an 80 grade. And it's not worth $13,000, I can tell you that. I mean, we've seen some examples in similar grade sell on eBay for half that price or less. You know, maybe in 75 grade. Okay. And I know that there's a big difference in price between a 75 and an 80, but my point is that this is a 75 now at best. And that's worth half of what that, at most, it's worth half of what someone paid for this. And they're just looking at the title. They're looking at the pop report. They're not taking into account the actual condition of the item. We saw that with a AFA 95 21 back Boba Fett that was no longer a 95 anymore, that sold for, like, what was it, $80,000 about a year ago? I don't remember the exact time frame. But, you know, this is another one, 32B Yoda AFA 75 that sold for $2,000. Why? Why did this sell for $2,000? You can buy an AFA 75-ish grade Yoda yourself. And the 32B is the most commonly produced Kenner item in I believe, okay, I'm going on memory from reading an article. The 32B debut card Yoda is the most heavily produced Kenner item, period. And, you know, you can go get a 75-ish grade example Yoda yourself, ungraded, but in similar condition to this on eBay, because every week they come up. But you can get one of these yourself and grade it yourself with AFA and get the 75 grade like this and spend no more than $600 or $700 at most. I had one that was absolutely an 80 or an 80 plus grade that I bought for like $350. And this was not that long ago, okay? So let's give it a little bit of inflation, okay? A little bit of inflation. Let's call it $500 to get one. $100 to $150 to grade it. So you're talking $650 versus dropping $2,000 on this item. Now, we saw the 32 back Yoda that sold, that I believe was an AFA 90 on the Hakes auction at some point recently, maybe last year, mid last year. And that one sold for stupid money too, like $16,000. But no need to do that on something as common as a 32B Yoda. Absolutely nuts. The Dagobah Action Playset AFA 80 Plus Pop 2, second highest grade. This one sold for $18.12. I mean, to me, that one's probably a little bit of an overpay. Realistically, I think if this was in one of the Facebook groups, no way that it would get anywhere near this number. Probably half this number, if I had to guess. Maybe a little more over that. Maybe 1,200-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. And this is another one where you could buy it ungraded for $800 to $1,000 max. But, you know, I'm not going to dog anybody for paying $18.12 on this one, given some of the other crazy ones we've seen. Rebel Command Center AFA 80, third highest grade, sold for $64.75. Now, we saw one of these in AFA 80 grade condition, just like this, okay, that sold on eBay in an auction for like $2,400. So, pretty wild. But that is what somebody was willing to pay for this one. And again, a lot of it comes down to exhausting all avenues for the availability of this vintage stuff. And, you know, I know that most of the people buying on here, they don't have time to go on eBay. We talked about that. But a lot of this stuff does appear on eBay very regularly and for a lot less expensive. We just saw the the 12-inch, or excuse me, the 7-inch, 8-inch C3PO, the Takara. We just covered that in a recent video. And, this was, again, probably a price that's in line with fair market value, but it was ungraded, right? The ungraded tends to go for fair market value or below fair market value if it, or, in lower grade. But it's just the high grade stuff that goes for craziness. But even this one, this is a DCA 75 for the Slave 1. I don't think this is an overpay, really, at $1,000. I mean, that one may be a little high, but not really. The DCA Y-Wing in 75 grade sold for $781. That's borderline even low on that one. Now we get into a couple. I didn't pull up all of them, but there were a few really good deals on significant items. Okay, now the 48C TIE Fighter pallet's not impossible to find. This one in an AFA 80 grade, unpunched with the ugly Toys R Us price sticker, sold for $400. That is a steal. That's a steal of a deal. I had an AFA 80 or CAS 85. I can't remember. But it's worth way more than this number. Way more than this number. And I sold mine for more than this number, and it was gone immediately on my Facebook group. So, you got to look for deals like this. This is a great steal of a deal that you could. I mean, whoever bought this, it's worth minimum $700. Minimum. That's a good deal. Sand People, another good deal. This one was an AFA 80 Plus Pop 2 for the 41A Sand People. That one sold for $500. A very fair deal. I mean, it's not a steal, but it's a very good deal. The 41A debut, I believe this is the debut card for the AT-AT driver. AFA 80 sold for $512. Clear blister. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. Usually with the debut card AT-AT driver, when you get a clear blister in high grade or high-ish grade, you're going to be closer to $900 minimum. So that was another very good deal. Those were the only really good deals that I pulled up, just because I had some others I wanted to show you that were pretty rare. Here was an 8-pack department store mailer. That's a pretty cool example there. $1937 was the final sales price after the buyer's premium. AFA U85. Here was one, a 4-pack mailer. That's a pretty significant one there. UKG 80%. 1687. That's not one you see very often. JC Penney exclusive 4-pack. Very, very cool. And those were all early mailers, too, early baggy types. You can tell by it's got the Made in Hong Kong in black lettering there. I believe those were SW, I can't remember, SWB or D baggies. But those are, that's an early item, or an early, age item. So that's a very nice one there. And then we had another one I had never seen before. This is Pop 1 on the AFA population report. It's only an AFA 75 plus, but I had never seen this particular 4-pack before. But Han Hoth, Luke X-Wing, Hoth Rebel Soldier, and then Lando. $42.50 on that one. And that's one where I'm not really surprised. I mean, this is probably, it was only a 75 plus, but it's the first time I personally have ever seen it. Now, mailers and things like that, it's a very tricky market. Most people don't care about them. So this is like a passion collector that has to have all the different mailers. It's just tough to resell. I found it to be tough to resell mailer type items. Here was a 3-pack with Wicket, Tebow, and Paplu that sold for $781. That was an AFA U85 Pop 7. Another rare one. Now, here we go. This is kind of to round things out, but this is a true sale here. Now, this, again, is... there's always one, right? We had the Rancor Keeper, but if you look at it close enough, you can see very clearly that it's starting to yellow. So it's no longer... Yeah, you can tell that it's starting to yellow. Now, it's graded... It's a 77A Klaatu, one of the most common possible mint on cards out there, and it's a 77 back B. It's got the Anakin offer, but it's a punched example too. But more importantly, that this is no longer a clear blister. And it's just not. It's in 5 years or maybe 10, this is going to be yellowed just like them all. Okay, I can tell you because it's happened to me. I had a Bosk on an earlier Return of the Jedi card back that was labeled clear blister and was clear blister when I bought it. You know, 10 years later, it's starting to yellow just slightly, just like this. So it was AFA 85. Now, again, Pop 8. It's not even Pop 1. It's Pop 8. So there's 8 others like this on the population report. And it sold for $13,125. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I mean, somebody was either drunk, high, or they're sitting on an oil field full of money. So, but there's always one every auction, I feel like. But this is that one, and you're never going to get your money out of it. This is worth to me $450 at most. But you know, there were some other sales in here, but you know, pretty cool auction. And I just hadn't got around to showing some of these items that sold, but I wanted to kind of just show you some of the auctions that were going on. I mean, we've got some other cool stuff. This is going to be the craziest sale. I can't wait to see what it sells for. This is a PSA 6, but it's signed by Kobe, signed by Jordan, and it's got their logo, you know, the NBA logo patches from game used jerseys. Right now, the current bid is $5.7 million. That's $6.9 million after the buyer's premium. It's going to certainly set a new record for the most expensive card ever. It's a one of one, and it's really, really cool. Don't get me wrong, but oh my God, that's just unbelievable that someone pays $5.7 million for a PSA 6 card. But that is pretty cool. Pretty cool item. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. That's all I really had, and I'll be back soon.